Oh,
Yes. I just gotta find the, oh, there's a big helicopter out there. Can y'all hear that? Wow.
no.
Good, because it's loud. Let's see, I gotta find my Bible study. Nope. All right. I got it together. So, welcome to Wow Wednesday. I have to say, well, our fearless leader, Dr. Pulley, is not going to be with us. He is a special guest speaker for Beyond Church tonight. So we'll support knowing that they're getting the presence of our leader at Beyond Church. I must say that this is our last session for living and leading a victorious life. Can you believe it? It's amazing. How did that happen?
It seems so fast, Gina.
I know. It did. It's amazing. At times this year has felt like it's just gone on as molasses, as slow as molasses. And then I'm like, oh, it's almost over. Woo! So we are in our last class. Next week is Thanksgiving week. So we desire everyone to spend time with their family and their loved ones. And we want to give everybody the present and the gift of yourself and your presence to your family and to yourself. So this will be our last class for this. Now we'll resume the Bible study series, and I'll give you a preview of what that's going to be at the end of class. It's going to be good.
Yes.
So before we get started, Elder Robin, will you get us and open us up in prayer? No.
You're on mute.
Nope. Still on mute. You didn't unmute. You thought you unmuted. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. Let us take a moment and center ourselves with eyes closed. Take a deep breath in. Audibly let go of anything that needs to be let go. And then one more conscious inhalation. And as we draw that breath in, think of it as the inspiritus, the inspiration, the spirit. We are imbibing in the spirit, filling ourselves up, holding that breath, holding that life, holding God within. And then slowly just relaxing your breath and let whatever needs to fall away, fall away. Feel the fullness of life within you. And let's focus on our hearts. Dear God, we lift our hearts to you tonight. We open up our hearts and we allow you to fill us in all the places that we need to be filled. And we allow the abundance of our life and spirit and love that lives in our heart to seep out and emanate the presence of us together and giving the love and receiving the love and being the kingdom in progress, the kingdom in real time, the kingdom that you desire, God. May you bless us with your presence in all of our thoughts and deeds and actions this evening. And may be a blessing that, God, you are pleased with us. Amen and amen.
Oh, thank you. I love that. That was exactly what I needed to get me centered and ready for today. So, as we know, we are on our last class, and the last letter of the word victorious. And I will share my screen. There it is. And the topic for this week we know is server or serve. And so before we get started on the content that I have, I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the messages on Sunday. I know, Shepherd Mother, you have a lot to share because you disclosed some of it last night in another class. So would you like to kick off the sharing?
Absolutely, absolutely, because out of all the victorious that we have had, this was my wake up. Now, I understood every single thing that we have talked about. I received all of that, but in the 8:45 service this week, that was my service. And it was to get rid of my idols in order to serve God. And let me tell you something. I didn't even realize, you know how you think that idols mean like some kind of statue or something like that, and not even realizing that whatever I put before God is an idol. It was like, no, that can't be. If it's your job, if it's your friends, if it's your whatever I put before God is an idol. And that just knocked me right off my feet because, you know, I pride myself in journaling and doing my silence and my scriptures and my affirmations and denials and all of that. And I'm just like on it. I'm just like on the spiritual toolbox trail and all of that. And never once did it occur to me that I hadn't thought about putting God first. Even though I knew that kingdom means that God is the center of my life, God was really not the center of my life. And God was really not my source. I thought my source was my brain. So my brain was kind of like my idol. But I never put brain and idol together until he started talking. And when he did, it was like, do I hide? What exactly do I do? Because this is a message for me. And can everybody see me now and see how much I was committing adultery? You know, it was like, so I mean, the first one with him telling me that anything that I put before God is an idol, like an oatmeal raisin cookie. I mean, just all the things that I just kind of set over to the side, even thinking, well, I got to have a favorite pen to write my journal, all that kind of stuff. But it allowed me to wake up. I told him last night, my word, what was my word? My word was awesome, or I mean, it was just like something that awakening. I was awakened. I was awakened because knowing that in spite of everything that I always give myself credit for, I could not honestly sit there and give myself credit because I know that when things come up, I immediately go to this brain and say, now, what can I do about that? And I go to, well, there's this over here, there's this over there, but it never is God. Even when something is happening, until you get to the middle of it, it's when we say, oh God. We don't say, oh God, in the beginning. We go through all these things with our intellect and all that first. So anyway, I can't make a long story short now because I've already told a long story. So the thing is that my service, I even had to talk to Dr. Pulley after church. I had to go talk to him because I was almost like confessing. I felt like I had to confess. I had to forgive myself because I had always taken pride in the fact that I get up and I do my meditation and I do way more than 7 minutes worth of silence. whether you believe it or not, because I'm always talking, but I really do that. And then I'm journaling and everything, and I'm teaching Bible study, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But I was really not putting God first. And to admit that put a new lease on my life.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Yeah, that was a powerful one. Very powerful.
Gee,
Really, really powerful. Robin,
more
yes.
powerful than I expected.
Yep.
Reverend Mother, I love that because that was my service too. And yesterday I confessed to Dr. Foley, and I had to live. I woke up, yesterday was Tuesday, Monday. So Monday I woke up and I was out of sorts. I got out of bed on the wrong side, upside down, inside out, whatever. I was turned about. And before my feet even hit the floor, I was in a tizzy. No matter what I did, I couldn't get myself out of it. So I finally took myself to the beach and I got a journal and I was going to write, and I've sat in the car. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go write on the beach. I'm not going to do that. And then I got my phone and I put my headphones in. I'm like, well, I'll listen to the daily download and maybe that'll like, and then I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I went and walked on the beach and I'm talking to God. And then I stopped and I sat and I just started to cry. And I realized all the layers, because really, I had to like kind of I had to like derobe, like I was chucking all my tools until I finally was able to sit on the beach and just say, okay, God, it's just you and me, no tools, no nothing. Let's have a conversation. And then I said, how about I be quiet and I'll listen for you? Like I had to just keep derobing until I really was able to get naked. And I realized how much. So, right, I'm so completely on with you. How many spiritual tools and equipment and oh, I'm going to do that. It's all the doing. And even my being is sometimes doing. So it hit home. Boom. So that was that. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. And we'll get into more, a little bit more on that a little later. Anybody else have any insights from Sunday? Any of the services? Najda?
You always get me, Gina.
I know it.
2
You're
o'clock.
always so profound. You're always profound. I got to get it.
The 2 o'clock service was just amazing. I was listening to my YouTube channel on the way to church, and when I pulled in the parking lot, one of my favorite songs came on by Shekinah Glory Ministry. That's the name of them. Which those people are amazing. If I ever thought I could sing with them, I'd be gone. Wife left, dog left. Oh, they are just amazing. But the song that came on was named Yes. I said, okay. So I was presider, and I have a nasty habit of not looking at the script. And when it was time for me to give the title, his title for 2 p.m. on Sunday was Yes Always Works.
Amazing.
Yes. But I mean, he broke it down. I always think that he's just talking to me, but there is no doubt in my mind about what I really need to do to serve God. So that was it for me.
I love those divine, what the world would call serendipity, but we know it's divine, right? The divine messages that are coming in, just the divine connections. It's always amazing to me how those happen. Anybody else want to share anything from Sunday's messages? Patty, Cheryl, Patrick, Marilyn.
Hi, this is Patrick.
Hey.
I resonated with the 840. I mean, I enjoyed all three sermons, but I think the ones that hit the hardest for me or the most impactful were the 8:45 and the 2 o'clock. Specifically, uh, on the same lines as what Shepherd was saying with the 8:45, and then at the 2 p.m. I during this fall, I kind of like set myself on a program to kind of handle some things I've been having challenges with. And I had a moment where I like relapsed a little bit, and I was like kind of beating myself up about it. And I've been challenging myself to not do that and just like be open to God and just accept that it's all part of the process of me answering this call. And I was just a boohoo in service, and I had to keep myself together because we was in the middle of singing, so I couldn't like completely fall out. But I really, after I left church, like I just was driving back to St. Pete, and I really like just was talking to God. I was like, yes, okay, I don't like it like at all. Like I'm stubbornly like doing this, but I know at the end of the day, like it's gonna be great. So you're just gonna have to just drag me kicking and screaming, and I'm just gonna do it. So I was
Yes.
appreciative of that.
Yes, it's amazing. Amazing. Anybody else before we dig into more? Okay, I'm sure you will comment as we go forward. So you guys know I always like to look at the definition of words. So, and I chose intentionally to use server instead of servant for lots of reasons. But because for me, server sounds much more powerful servant has its hierarchical, in my mind, description. So I intentionally chose server. And basically a server is one who serves. And so look at all these definitions of serve. We know that to be in the service or of or work for, to be useful or of service, to help, to go through, to render obedience or homage to. That's kind of what the 2 o'clock was all about. To perform the duties of, to answer the requirements of, to contribute to promote, to provide regular or continuous supply of something. So like God as the source. So in that instance, God is a server to us. And gratify. So I just thought it was really cool to see all these definitions of serve, because I feel like these were peppered through the messages on Sunday. And just so that we're all clear, like, serve is not just, we all have different ideas of what serve is, but it's so many things depending on the context and the situation. So the whole theme of Sunday was service is a choice, right? And really it was about what does it mean to serve God? How are we servers of God? Because we know it's the order. We have to serve God, we have to serve ourselves, and then we can serve everybody else. But we try to do it the other way around, like everything else. We think that we serve others, that serves ourselves, and then that serves God. It's like, no, once again, we got it backwards. We got it upside. We're living in the upside down again. And so I think that this is very powerful because it changes the order. It's like, we remind ourselves. It's just that simple. Serve God, serve ourselves, serve everybody else. And the same, love God, love ourselves, love everybody else. So we have this very long scripture where Joshua is really talking about, being of service to God and watching what other people are doing and how they're not really being of service to God, how they're serving other people. He's talking about how, this is his unfoldment and really understanding what it means to serve God for himself. The 8:45 we've talked about already. Get rid of your idols, right? There is only one God, and I'm going back through and reading the Bible again, and it is so prevalent in the Old Testament. The consistent disagreement, argument, punishment, all the stuff that God was trying to get through all of these different messengers and teachers that he brought to this group of people whose whole world up until then had been polytheistic. Like they believed in multiple gods. They believed in, a lot of idolizing statues and idolizing, gold and silver and all the stuff that they all a bunch of different gods. And so this whole thing about serving, there's only one God, and that God is God of love. So we're here to serve that God. And, in the Old Testament, there's that very punishing God, right? If you don't serve me, I'm going to kill your kids. I'm going to sacrifice you. I happen to be reading in the part where, the citizens were questioning Aaron and Moses. And so God, basically there was an earthquake, so the earth swallowed them up. He sent the plague, sent all the stuff. But we know that that's just us continuously fighting our side of us. So, right, it's continuously fighting that side of us that wants to serve ourselves or serve from a different place instead of serve God. And so I think that when Dr. Pulley, and so often we think of an idol, just like you were talking about Shepherd Mother, as something that is another god, or it's, a picture of something. A lot of the polytheistic religions do still have statues, and I've owned a couple of them myself because they're beautiful, quite frankly, but I don't idolize them. I just think they're beautiful. Especially some of the ones in, the Hindu and Buddhist, some of that kind of stuff. They're just beautiful pieces of art. But some people genuinely worship those. But when Dr. Pulley defined idol as anything your time, talent, and treasure is put before your relationship with God, that's an idol. So I'm just going to stop right there. Who else had any insights that definition of idol? What did that do when you heard that? If you were at the 845, who else was at the 845? Elder Cherie, what happened when he started talking about that for you?
It was an eye opener in that when you look beyond just a statue of a deity or God and look at anything from money to food to gambling to, it really encompasses a lot. And when you think about where you're putting your money and your time and your talent to, as opposed to working, co-creating with God, that's a lot of different things in that category. And so for me, that was very eye-opening.
Yes, definitely. Cheryl, were you at the 8, or did you listen to 845?
Yes, I was there. And I particularly liked the part where he talked about our time, talents, and treasures, where we devote those, because the Bible also says where our treasure is, where our treasure is, there our heart shall be also. So putting a lot of different things before God, I was reminded of how easy it is to do that. And like Shepherd Mother said earlier, there are so many things that I devote my time to, but I never thought about it as putting them before God. And while he was talking in the 845 service, I was thinking about the amount of time in particular that I devote my energy to various things, like reading and music. And I was thinking of it comparatively to how much time I actually spend in reading scripture and talking to God in the stillness and silence. And I was reminded of how easy it is to slip into putting something before God.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and I think it's also the spirit behind which we do some of those things too, right? So, I think when he started talking about God being the center, God being first, and God being the source, I was like, oh, well, great. Does that mean we all have to be? This is genuinely, I've struggled with this when with other spiritual teachers when they talk about stuff like this. Well, God needs to be the center, God needs to be first, and we have to acknowledge that God's our source. And I'm like, well, that would be really easy if I was a monk and I didn't have anything else to do but sit around and go, oh, let me do prayers all day. But what does that mean in the spirit of living my everyday life, right? And I was, when I was working with this message and even hearing some of your comments, Shepherd Mother, when you were talking, what I heard was, so if we understand that God is love and we recognize that God is love, then another way to look at this is that love is center, love is first, and love is the source, right? And so if we really think about that, it helps me take it from being like, oh, that means I have to just sit around and read scriptures and worship and do all this stuff all the time, instead of, you know what? When I am being love, when I am being patient and kind and, you know, not judgmental, when I'm living those not mutually respectful acceptance, all those 9 neighborly networking principles, then I don't have any other idols. That can be like, for me, that becomes my mark, because otherwise my logical, rebellious mind wants to just go, well, that's fine. I'm not going to spend all that time just sitting around reading the Bible. I got other things I got to do. And I don't believe that's the intention. Now, that's just my tricky way of trying to get out of stuff, I'm sure, or trying to judge myself. So I have to remember that it's not literally, for me, it doesn't mean that I have to be in the practices. And I'm not suggesting that's what you were saying, Cheryl, but I can go there really quickly. It's just the spirit of which we're doing things, right? So I think he was talking about when we have problems, do we try to solve them ourselves, or do we first go to God and say, okay, God, I surrender before I start trying to solve this? What do you say? And it could be a 5-minute check-in to say, okay, God, give me the enlightenment. Help me make sure I'm centered. Help me come with this from a spirit of love. Yes, Robin, please.
When you're finished with that, I just wanted to link in something about idols. So just keep going.
Oh, yeah. And so I think that it is important that we understand and don't get caught up in the quote unquote religiosity. And I'm not suggesting that any of us do that. It's just depending on where we came from, we have this connotation of what it means to bring God first. So please, Robin, go ahead.
So I want to just go back a little bit about idols. And this is something that I studied and learned a while ago, because I too believed that Hinduism was a polytheistic religion. It actually is not a polytheistic religion. It's a monotheistic religion. And it has helped me understand the human condition through. So I understand myself through that. So let me just give you a breakdown on how it was explained to me when I was in India, and how I've applied it to the religiosity of my Christianity. So if there is only one God, all God, 24 hours a day, it's all God, one God, all the time God, which is something that we kind of talk about here at the Kingdom, it's all God. Then this is the light, and that's the prism that we hold up. And the prism that you hold up is creation. And how it comes through, it has a variety of colors, right? That's the prism. So that is when you hold up one God in the thought of polytheistic version of Hinduism. It is the different aspects of God. So Kali, Hanuman, Shakti, Shiva, and we can go on and on and on, and all of the different gods. Lakshmi, they're all different aspects of one God. And they are developed folklores like architects of personalities. So if you are a loyal warrior and you are someone that is always out to work for God and protect God and to help the undermined, that would be your Hanuman. That's the monkey god. He's the loyal warrior. That's an archetype of you, of God through you. So now backtrack on that. When I look at some of the behaviors that I have, when I think that they're idols and I'm looking at worshiping money, or I'm worshiping my job, or I'm worshiping affirmation, or I'm seeking something outside of myself, I will look at that behavior as it is God. I'm all God. It's just which aspect is running the show at the moment. Which part of my personality, which part of God moving through me is out of balance, and where do I need to come? And that's when the conversation comes to God, and I sit and I say, okay, this is what's happening, and this is how I am being activated and motivated, and where God, where am I out of balance? Because whatever it is that's triggering me externally is usually what's off with inside of me, which means that God is in me, I'm out of balance. So am I being the over aggressive warrior? Am I being the goddess of whatever it is? It's all God. It's just which aspect of me is running the show.
Oh, that's very cool. I didn't realize that. That's awesome.
Yeah, they're developed folklores and deities that help represent aspects of God.
That's so cool. I love that. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Hi, Sharon.
I think just
Hi.
one thing. I think in this scripture, because this is making me think about in the scripture, when God in the Old Testament is talking about all the different, all the different things that they're worshiping, could it just be that they're worshiping the idols that are very different aspects of them, and God is trying to bring them to mind that it's all me. It's all me. When they get into when it's I can't think of her name right now. When she comes and the gods go to war with each other and they're all fighting with each other, and I'm better than you, and I'm better than you, and all of this. And God always wins, right? The God always wins. Well, of course, because they're just the lower vibration aspects of God. They're all even those minor gods are all serving in all aspects of the one God.
Yep. Yeah. I have to really go deep to get past the, way the Old Testament is written, because I have to really try to put on my metaphysical hat, because it's rough. You take it literally, it's a very not nice God. It's not a loving God if you read it that way. So, but I like that example, Robin, that you were talking about, where it's just all the different aspects. It's all God, and God's just helping them, see what works and what doesn't work as effectively. So yes, I love the whole, is God the center? So when he's talking about is God is the center, everything else goes around. What did he say? Everything else goes around the circumference. So we start with God from the inside and then work to serve the outside, right? And so it is about digging into the God within. It is about going and connecting with the spirit within. To me, it's like that grounding. It's when I do that, if I can just do that in a hot second, instead of just focusing on, as Shepherd Mother says, just letting my brain be the idol. If I can step back and make sure that wherever I'm getting my inspiration from is genuinely from spirit and from the inside, then God is at the center. If everything I do is genuinely in that unconditional love, then God is at the center. Anytime it's not, as Elder Robin was talking about, we're out of balance, right? Doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means we're out of balance. Come back, center ourselves again, right? So I love that it is God is at the center. So if we ever get out of balance, what do we want to do? We want to come back and center ourselves, right? And so when we center ourselves, every time we center ourselves, we are now putting God at the center. So it's just that recalibration. And so then he was also talking about God is first. I too pride myself every day that I get up and I do my journaling and my reading the scriptures. But guess what I do first? I don't do that first. I go make my tea. Well, I go to the bathroom, but then I go make my tea. And then I go, because in my mind, it's part of that ritual that I've created for myself. And so I was sitting there going, oh, crap. No, I don't think I'm just going to start doing that, because I like my tea and I like to get my stuff in order. But that's okay, because, that's my preparation, I think. So I was really struggling with the God is first, all kinds of stuff. Because I'm like, well, that's not where the first part of my time goes. But, and then, we talk a lot about, is that where the first part of your money's going? Are you sending it straight to the, wherever you're sending it first, whatever it's for? And then certainly this also goes to our talents, right? So are we serving God first with our talents? Or, which means to me, are we operating in our authenticity, in that divine expression that we are, in service as a server to the purpose that God put us here to achieve and make an impact in this earth. So it also has to do with our talents. And so when you really think about that, is what we're doing on a daily basis. Are we using those God-given talents to the service of God? And so it's just something for us to think about. And then certainly we know that we get rid of our idols when we recognize that God is our source. There's only one energy from which everything flows. Everything that's happening in my life is sourced from God, good and or challenging. As much as we'd like to say it's us, it's all part of God. I mean, even when we talk about, well, I caused that, even when we know we're operating in ego, that's still part of God being the source, because that was an experience that we were put here to experience. So it's just, the more you think about this, the deeper it can get. But yes, we're not really serving. We're not really being servers, victorious servers, if God is not center, God is not first, and and we don't recognize God as our source. Any other comments on the 845? Awesome. So then we go on to the 10:30 service. And I love how you opened us up in prayer, Elder Robin, with incline with the heart, because the 10:30 was all about incline your heart. It's a matter of the heart. And that's kind of what I was talking about. It's right. You must feel like you must be a server of the Lord and the law of love, right? So really to serve and incline our heart, we're talking about living in the law of love. Because serving God is genuinely a matter of the heart, and you must incline your heart. And it made me think, like, in one of our Tuesday night classes, Dr. Pulley starts it with the feelings check. We know we have the cup check on the daily download, and now we're talking about the heart check, right? So it's time to do a heart check. So see where our heart is. And so to incline your heart to really live in that law of love, we know that law of unconditional love, which is to really serve God. It's beyond the rules, right? So we can't regulate relationships, obedience, and service. It's beyond the rules. It's not just checking the boxes. It's, I love God, and because I love God, I serve God beyond the rules. I'm not just doing it because there's a rule I think I'm supposed to follow. I'm not doing it because I think I'm going to look good on paper. It's not that accounting type of service. And I think so often people get caught up in, especially around volunteering, right? I mean, I think we have this definition, or my experience is that people have the, and again, it's not right, but people believe they're serving God by the number of volunteer activities and volunteer organizations or service projects or any of that kind of stuff they've done. But are they really doing it out of the love for God, or are they doing it for some other reason, right? Are they doing it because, we've talked about this before, because they feel like that's the martyr syndrome, right? If they're doing it and it's getting them feeling overwhelmed, or if it's draining their energy or something like that, we know that's not being in service to God, because God is a source of never ending energy. So God would not, that's not putting God first if we're draining ourselves. That's just not. Even though it might look good on paper, even though the rules might say, oh, well, to be a good Christian, you're supposed to have all these service stuff. No. That's not really loving God. That's doing it for the religiosity's sake. That's doing it because somebody said so. I think this is why my experience has been that churches above many of the volunteer organizations burn out their volunteers faster than others do, because people have this sense of quote unquote obligation, right? And I've seen it happen in a couple of different churches where people felt like they didn't have a choice but to serve. And that's why Dr. Pulley was talking about, we want you to serve in the lane that you love, because if you don't love that lane, then you're really not going to be serving from a loving perspective, and therefore we're, it's going to have other negative impacts. And it just won't be as empowering. Yes, Shepherd Mother.
One of the things that got me about this particular one is that he showed us that it's not because of anything but being reciprocal.
Mhm.
Because he said that I love serving God because God first loved me.
Mhm.
And just that in itself is saying, just like we say, love God, love ourselves, and then love everybody else's. God loved me first.
Mhm.
So I'm just reciprocating. I'm just reflecting what God has done because
Yes.
God first loved me. When he said that, I wrote that down because that was just as profound as anything. Duh, God first loved me. Why not? What else do I need to love God first?
Mhm.
What else do I need to serve God?
Mhm.
It was just really simple.
Yeah. About as simple as loving our parents because they love us,
Yes,
which for some of us is easier than others.
easier said than done.
For some. Yes, very well said. And then he talked about, Dr. Pulley's second point was beyond the rituals. So, it's even beyond, now this got me, right? It's even beyond the principles and the practices. I was like, let me think about that one for a moment. Wait, wait, what? There's something beyond. I thought that was how I was doing this. And I was like, well, heck, it's always another higher level. And again, I think it's about the spirit with which we do the principles and the practices, right? If we're doing them out of religious, out of ritual, meaning I'm doing them, and this is my thing, if I'm doing it to get, then I'm not really doing it with heart and feeling. I'm doing it with some sort of ulterior motive. When I'm doing it to connect, to genuinely center myself, right? To get connected back into God, which we were talking about before, then I'm beyond the ritual. But I'm not going to lie, there's days that I show up that I'm like, oh, I got to get this done because I'm supposed to. And so, but guess what? I don't get as good of results versus the days that I come in and go, ooh, yes, I love this. This is my way of connecting with God. It's my way of making sure that I'm going to live the rest of the day inside out. Then I have it powerfully. So, it's not coming from the heart if we're doing it for ritual, just for the sake of doing it. Now, mind you, when we first start growing, my experience of this was when I first started growing, I was just doing it to get the practice going. I was just doing it to get comfortable with the thing. And so sometimes I was doing it, I didn't have any other than feeling like resistant to it, which is what we'll get in a little bit later. I didn't have much feeling around it because I was just getting comfortable with experiencing the practice and the principles and what does that mean. And so I think it's one of those things, like everything else we say, the more we practice it, the more it becomes ingrained in who we are. It becomes a part of our being, and it goes from doing to being. And so it's the point at which, I think our principles and practices help me learn how to be more than they, as I continue to do them, they help me just be and tap me into being able to switch it from doing to being, from being to doing. And then, yes.
I was gonna say, I love that you said that because I was sitting here thinking, I don't do the same practices every morning or every day, and I try my best when I wake up to kind of like do like a self check first, like me and God, before I even after I go to the bathroom, obviously, because that's what everybody do when they get up. Like when I'm like, all right, it's time to do my little morning thing, I kind of check in. It's like, how am I feeling? What is God telling me the practice that I need to do today? Like sometimes it is sitting in the stillness and silence, and sometimes it's not. And I can tell the days where like it's not supposed to be that, because like my brain is like, this is not today, Patrick. Like it's a praise and worship day, or like you need to just journal, or you know, like you need to just like go on a prayer walk or whatever it is. But I used to just be like, oh no, Dr. Pulley said we had to do all these things, so I tried to knock all the practices out in an hour, for 7 days straight, and that drove me crazy. So like I've gotten to a point that I tap in first, and then based on that tap in, figure out whatever the practice is and the principle that I focus on for that morning.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I love that. That's great. Yes, Shepherd Mother.
This, with Patrick saying that, and it was something that Dr. Pulley said last night about your toolbox, because we don't always use the same tool. It depends on what we need to do. It's not like if we got a nail, we're going to take a screwdriver and try to hammer it in the wall.
Right.
It actually depends on what is happening. So I can understand perfectly, Patrick, what you're saying, as far as that's not the tool I need today. I'm not stuck over here. I don't need to unscrew this. This is something I need to write about. I don't need to have a scripture for this right here. This is something I got to hammer out. It's just that that's the reason that we have more than one tool in the toolbox, because there's more than one thing going on with us most of the time.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
kind of puts it that way.
And
The
we have
ritual-
to.
The ritual for me was, and I'm being very honest when I tell you that it was very important that when Dr. Pulley said, have you done this, that I could do my thumbs up, my high five, and my heart. It was just like, I got to get my thumbs up, my high five, and my heart for this. So I'm going to do this. But it may not have been the thing that I really desired to do. So I understand that perfectly, because it's all about how we want to be received sometimes, or
Yeah.
perceived.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, Patrick, that you do that check-in, because it is that centering to say, okay, God, what is it? What are we doing today? What is it? Give me that inspiration of what it is to do today. And when we're first starting out, we have to get comfortable with something. Pick it, whatever it is. And so for me, and all of us are different. So for me, I had to get used to doing the same thing over and over again, because until I could get there, I wasn't going to feel whatever I was supposed to feel doing the thing, because, left to my own devices, I'd go do something else. It's interesting because, and the other thing I will say is, if you do have things that work for you, if they still work and they're keeping you grounded and connected and centered and God's first, and you can recognize God as the source, if they keep you all of that, then keep doing it. It's the point at which it's not working anymore. And it just becomes one of those, okay, I'm doing it because, that it might be time to go pull a different toolbox out, right? I've heard a couple of you say on this call that last week was funky. The last 2 weeks, I've been really feeling agitated, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, it didn't matter. I could read my scripture and journal and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And I have not done it this entire time, even though Dr. Pulley has said over and over again, when, pick another tool, I stick to mostly the same tools, because most of the time they work for me. Well, I think on Monday, I finally pushed all of it aside and got down on the floor, which I hardly ever do, you guys, ever, if ever. Got down on the floor on my knees, and I was like, okay, what is it? I got nothing. And I mean, the tears started flowing. Like, I was just like, so it's just a point at which you'll know when it has become a ritual, because it's not fulfilling anymore. And that's time to go to the toolbox or go to God and say, okay, what now? Right? Which tool is for me to use this time? And also, I switched my ritual of exercise, that I've been doing that hardcore HIIT strength training. And I was like, I'm done. And I did yoga for the last 2 days, and it's like I can just imagine that, like I was just pushing myself so hard. I wasn't letting anything flow. And so that was a movement for me, right? But exercise had become a ritual, and it was like, oh. So if you're doing it and you don't have a love of doing it, it's time to switch. Whatever it is, it's time to switch. Because at the moment that we lose heart, at the moment we lose feeling, at the moment we lose connection, that's our shift to do something different, because now we know it's become a ritual. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, obviously, that's a plug for nonlinear movement, to let your body lead your way. Let the God animate through your body instead of your mind dictate how you exercise. Let the wisdom that lives within you lead you on the path of discovery of what's going on.
Yeah.
End of soapbox scheme.
Yep. It's beautiful. April, just do what Patrick was talking about and take the moment to just connect and say, what now? And give ourselves permission to do something different, because that very stubborn side of me goes to, well, it's not going to be as hard and it's not going to be that. Well, guess what? I've been sore for the last 2 days. We need different things to exercise different parts of us. So, especially our heart. So this was awesome. This Beyond the Ritual is awesome. And then Beyond the Rewards. Okay. Yeah. So it's like, we already know in Kingdom, we genuinely believe everything's already done. So we know the rewards are already there, right? So it's like we're serving God when we recognize it's beyond the rewards. I'm doing it because it's just in my heart to do. I'm serving because it genuinely feels good. No expectations. I already know they're there, but I'm not doing it to get, right? I mean, for me, I have a tendency to do to get. It's like, no, I'm just doing because I desire to do it. Because it makes me feel good, because I get ignited from the inside out, because then I can be that light to other people. It just makes you feel good. And I loved when he said, what did he say? They're not necessary. They're just accoutrements. So we know the rewards in that instance are just the icing on the cake. And the recognition and the rewards, we're doing it not for that. So the moment we're doing anything to get it for recognition or to please somebody or to get something, we're not doing it with that heart of service. It's a heart of something else. And so it's really about our consciousness. It's like everything else. Where are we operating from? Are we operating from the lower consciousness that really is all about what can I do to get something? Or are we doing it in the higher consciousness that says, I'm going to serve because it feels good, and I know whatever happens is going to be phenomenal and even more than I could even imagine? Any other insights from the 10:30 service? Okay, so we will switch to, where did it go? Oh, where did it go? I lost there it is. Nope, that's not it. There it is. All right, so then we go to the 2 o'clock service, and yes, this one I was like, oh. So he hit straight on it. I can remember this word obey. I'm like, no, not doing it. Didn't show up in any vows that I had in my marriage. I can tell you that much. And so I was one of those that does not like this word obey. Now he's been working with me on it for several years. So this was something I was already working with. Because to be real, when we serve God, we must obey. And obey simply means that we've agreed to be in that covenant relationship with God, right? That says, yes, when you say something, I'm going to trust you and follow what you say. And Dr. Pulley reminded us, What does it say? When you get the nudge and feeling that you follow Christmas? Oh, well, that works for me. Clearly, I've been watching too much Hallmark. No idea what that's supposed to say, but that's all perfect. I guess that you follow Jesus's birth. How's that? We'll go with that. um, so, Dr. Pulley continues to remind us this, and he said this to us in the writers' class last night, because I think this like disobedience is maybe what I've been feeling for the last several weeks. Because there is a part of us that's always in our subconscious that does not desire to change, that does not desire to transform, that does not desire to operate from a higher place. It is that part of us that anytime we don't listen to God, anytime any obedience feels obtrusive or abusive to us, it's because there's that resistance that's coming up inside of us, that subconscious, something deep inside of us that's resisting just change. It just doesn't want to change. And so especially when we get these whispers from God that are things like, what did you say? I know you did not say that to me, because that is far more than I can even imagine that I want to do. I really don't want to always be taking the high road in relationships. I don't want to be the one that always has to change and say, I'm sorry and forgive. Why can't somebody else do that? And yet we know that if it's been told to us through God, in whatever form that we're spoken to from God, with God, it is ours to say yes to. However, it doesn't just mean yes when we like it. It's real easy to go, oh yes, God, I'll do that one. But it's not so easy when God says something that we don't like. I mean, I had a boss that told me, Gina, you're not going to like every aspect of your job, but you have to do it anyway, and do it, pretending like you like it, because that's how you're going to be successful. Success is not just about doing the things you like. It's about doing the things that you like and that you don't like successfully, and with a cheerful heart. And we talked about this earlier. God is our creator and parent, and you don't always like what our parents and creators do for us or ask of us, but it's good for us. And we have to trust that we are protected. This is where divine protection comes in. We have to trust that if we've heard it from God and we don't like it, we have to trust that God will protect us through whatever it is when we just do the thing. Anybody have any insights on that one?
It makes me think.
Go ahead,
go ahead.
Patrick.
I was just gonna say, it makes me think of when I was a kid, just like Dr. Pulley was saying, like my mom would ask me to do things that like I absolutely like hated, like loathed. Like, I mean, like would have an attitude doing it, and like would just, like obviously physically show that I was not enjoying what I was doing. And now, 20, 30 years later, as a full grown adult, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And even like spiritually, 30 years ago, God was like, hey, by the way, and I was like, no. And like now as an adult, I'm like, oh, that's what that meant when I was like 10 years old. Okay, God.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Shepherd Mother?
Now, I actually, the first thing I thought about with this was knowing that Abraham had to disagree with God about taking his son. I mean, somebody come up to me and tell me to take my son and do something that I know might end his life. Out of all the things that go on, that has always stuck out in my brain, that this man just said, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He couldn't, I know that he did it, but I know what it had to take for him to do that,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah.
And so when I think about that, and I think about myself, and I think about how my great grandmother used to just give me things. Let me tell you something. Once a year, my great grandmother made me take my clothes out of the closet and hand wash them in a tub. And I thought that had to be the worst thing on earth. And she did not care whether I liked it or not. And I knew that she did not care. And I knew that I was going to do it because the faith I had was if I didn't do it, what would happen to me? And it's the same thing now. If I'm not willing to do the things that are beyond, or the things that God is asking me to say yes to, and I'm not willing to do them, I may have to pay more than I would ever be willing to pay for it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because when he said you won't change the will of God, so just say yes, I was
That's
like,
it.
okay. In other words, what you resist persists if it's the will of God, right?
Absolutely.
So whether you like it or don't like it, you might as well get it over
It's
with.
still
because
gonna be, yeah.
it's not going away
It's not.
until you do it. So, and I loved it when he said, if you don't like it, that's fine. You can talk to God. It doesn't mean you just go, okay, well, I'm going to do it, but I don't like to talk through it. But you're going to have to do it at some point anyway. So, just put on your big girl panties and let's move on. Right. And continue to talk to God through it, because God is there protecting us. God is there for supporting us. God is there to serve us. So let's be reciprocal, like you were talking about, Shepherd Mother, and serve God, because God is our source, God is continuously serving us. So why don't we just give some back and serve God? It also is saying yes when you don't understand it and it doesn't make sense. Goodness knows the last few years, there's been a lot of this in my world.
Yeah.
A lot of this continues to show up in my world. And again, it gets back to that trust. Just trust God. Trust that there's a divine order. Trust that this is part. And I actually have to trust that I might not understand it. It may not make sense right now, but somewhere along the line, I agreed to do this. I just have to get quiet enough to figure out, wait, how, what, why did I do this? And where is it that I agreed to this? Because I can plead the fifth, but if I co-created my life with God, then it's not about me not really understanding. It's me just not being clear that I created this with God to begin with.
And the statement that Dr. Pulley made in that was him saying that God is not trying to make sense. God is making faith.
Yes, God is not trying to make sense. God is making faith, right? And that is trusting. It is trusting, and it's trusting that what is beyond what we can see, because all we can see is limited, right? So we can say, I don't understand this. It doesn't make sense based off what I can see. But guess what? There's something beyond what we can see. That's why he said beyond what we can see. And that beyond what we can see is genuinely unlimited, because God, we know, is limitless. God is all intelligence. God is all knowledge. God is all understanding. And God knows better than me. And by the way, we co-created that. So somewhere along the way, we've made that covenant relationship. So as much as I want to say I don't understand and it doesn't make sense, if I really think about it, that doesn't last very long. And genuinely, God knows what's best for me. And then finally, when you don't agree with it, I just don't feel like I don't feel the vibe of it. I don't agree with it. So it's okay. You have that argument and disagreement with God. I mean, God clearly welcomes that, because he helped people through that questioning. I mean, even Jesus, even our way shower, had a disagreement with God. Certainly on the cross. Are you sure this is what you really want to happen here? I'm not so sure about this, God. And he had to say it 3 times. before he finally said, okay, if this is your will, thy will be done, right? And so it's okay to have those conversations, because it is in those conversations that you transform yourself, right? Because it is sometimes in the disagreement that we can realize the error of our argument, if you will. And I loved when he said, you wrestle with the angels instead of fighting with the devil, right? Why not? And it is being transformed in that tussle. He said, oh, this is when he said, I'm transformed in the tussle. In the knockout, I get more knowledge. And in the fight, I get more faith. And so it's what I was talking about. There's a part of us that doesn't want to change, that doesn't want to agree with God. And again, that's okay, but that's what builds the trust. And here's the trick. Don't pretend to agree when you don't, right? Which I have a tendency to do. That's like, I'll say yes, and then I'll go do it, but I'm not going to really do it from the spirit. It's not going to be from that inclined heart we were talking about. So guess what? I'll have to do it again, or it'll be told to me again in a different way. So if I think I'm going, okay, sure, I'll go do it, and think I'm being the smart little girl, it doesn't work like that. So you can't pretend it. You have to genuinely keep going through it, wrestling through whatever you're disagreeing with, and have that fight so you can get to the agreement. It's not about just agreeing to disagree in this respect. It's really connecting to understand how can you agree and see what it is that God has in store for you. Oh, and I loved when he said, if your humanity is not fighting your divinity, then you've checked out. In other words, there is intentionally going to be this struggle, because otherwise we're really just like, okay, fine, whatever, it doesn't matter. So there is intentionally struggle. Now, how long it lasts and how often it happens gets less and less as we become more, centered in spirit and God. But it's still going to be there, because we're always being called to a higher place and called to make a bigger impact, and get closer to that purpose that we were put here to fulfill. And then he said, he's talking about let your natural fight your supernatural, let your limits fight the unlimited and limitless. Keep fighting by going to the sanctuary, which made me think of Deacon Kenneth's message about going to the sanctuary inside of us. And really connect in that relationship with God and get intimate with God, right? Build that intimate relationship with God until you can say yes and mean it. So that was a very powerful service at 2:00, because for any of us that have a little bit of not wanting to do things that we're told to do sometimes, whoa. That is not being a server.
Can I share something?
Yes.
I was trying not to, but a lot of people here know that I am a staunch AOL member. And for I don't know how long, don't be clapping, don't clap. I don't know for how long they've been trying to, the church, Kotek, everybody has been, they gave me a Gmail account. I just fought it and fought it and fought it. In fact, I now have 4 different accounts. That's another story. But the Gmail account was the most important account, but I wanted my AOL to reign because I am a staunch AOL. I will not let AOL go. But I had to go through so many things before I finally got to the point where I know that I must use my Gmail account. And all I had to do in the beginning was just use my Gmail account.
Just say yes.
All I had to do was say yes. But I was really, really into this AOL thing. And when people would make jokes about it, it would be like, don't mess with my AOL. And now, I mean, and this is like really like current. This is like tonight Gmail account acceptance. Listen, I have been on this thing with Bishop Hector almost all afternoon. And I actually had to end up, listen, putting on my big girl panties and getting with the program and saying, if it has to do with the church, I got to use Gmail.
There you go.
And so that's I just got to say it because it was just like right in my head, this whole yes thing was like going, you had to say yes. You fought it almost a year to finally just say, okay, because there's no getting around it. No matter how I try to twist it, turn it, gotta use it.
Yeah, if it's God's will, it's gonna happen.
It's just, and it's happened.
It's
It
gonna
has
happen.
happened. I'm just like,
I
I was
think
actually going through it through Bible
Yeah, it's
study.
yeah, it's interesting because it's really the resistance to us saying yes is about how attached are we to
Yes.
us being the source, right? And so if we're really not attached to us being the source, why would we ever say anything but yes to God? So anybody else have any insights? Elder Marilyn, Cheryl, Elder Cherie, Patty, anybody I haven't heard from?
I will say that for me, it was validation because I hear God all the time and God will tell me something like, you want me to do what? Are you kidding? Are you sure? And I hear God like, okay, go through your thing. I'll be here. Tell me when you're done. And so I go through all the reasons why I can't. And then I kind of take a breath. It's like, okay, now what we doing? But that time has gotten shorter and shorter where, I don't resist like I used to because I'm always going to say yes. Because I know after all the experiences and the miracles and wonders I have seen, I know it's going to turn out okay. But I guess it's just a stubborn part of me that I just got to put up a little fight and the fight gets smaller. But, I really appreciated that part of it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to say yeah, but I'm going to have to voice my opinion. You got to hear me first. And then after that, I'm good.
Well, that's okay. It's better than
Yeah.
saying yes and rolling your eyes.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I used to do
sometimes
that
it's time and
too.
place. I
Yeah.
still sometimes do that. But if we haven't really, but I can tell you, like, that's part of why I was so frustrated and so annoyed and so all the other things, because, I know I've heard from God that I'm to write this book and I haven't really said yes to it. I've just been going through the motions. Right. And so it's like, so anyway, anybody else? Thank you, Elder Cherie. Mark, you're sitting back there. Did you have anything you wanted to share? Yeah, he's good. I just want to make sure we acknowledge that we know you're back there.
Thanks, Tina. I'll share. Am I on?
Yeah, no, good. Yes, you are.
Okay. God, I just really needed this Bible. I just really needed this tonight. And what it does is it not solidifies, but it what's that word I'm thinking of when you get validation.
Validate.
Yeah.
So, I think for the 8:30 meeting for me, it was, I heard, what do you do when you first wake up in the morning? And I don't remember anything for the rest of the service because I was so mortified by my morning, you know what I mean? I get everything in, but it's not in the right order. I do all my addictions first, like, get my coffee and go outside in my pajamas and smoke a cigarette and then check my email. Then I'll pray and meditate and journal. And so it's like, no wonder why I feel exhausted because I'm doing all these things and don't feel that my cup is being filled. And it's like,
Yes.
what am I doing? What, you know what I mean? So it was after, I don't remember anything after that because I was so mortified by it. It was like a light bulb went on. It's like, like I'm putting a lot of things before God. So with that saying, tomorrow I'm leaving for New Hampshire for 9 days. And I, just during this meeting here, it's, I kind of been lying to, I'm thinking it's just a vacation. I'm going up, to visit family and, but really what it's like, what it sort of is, and I've been putting it off for 3 years because I can only see what I'll lose instead of what I gain, which is an issue with me. You know what I mean? When I make decisions, I can always see what I lose, but I can't, my mind doesn't, maybe it's a human condition. I can't always see ahead of time what I'm going to gain. But, so my aunt's been talking to me and I've been really I've been wanting to sell my house for a couple of years now. And I've been like, I don't want to give up my Florida home. And, so anyway, to make a long story short, God always brings me back to this point when you were saying that it gets repeated and it's like, it's happening tonight. So part of really what's happening when I go to New Hampshire is to see whether I'm really serious on moving there. And, which is really surrendering a lot here. Of course, all this right here, I'll take with me. So that's really great. And that's really all I have going on really with me is all this. But I mean, I'm not, everything, my classes and everything else are all online. And so it makes me a little nervous. Like I don't want to do it. I mean, the winters are long, and and I, when I lose a place down here to call my own, but who's to say, if I sold, whatever, there's such a long pro and con list that, it kind of breaks out even. So I just like, don't do anything. And, but I do feel stagnant. And I think it's because I haven't really followed where God wants me to go out of fear. So my family don't know I smoke cigarettes. So like tonight's the last night for cigarettes. And then tomorrow is my anniversary for staying clean. So tomorrow's my anniversary and then I'll be flying out. So it's really funny because while we're doing this, it's like, I'm going to take this book because the toolbox book, because I have to figure, I'm not going to be able to get up in the morning and smoke a cigarette. I'm not going to be able to go outside in my pajamas with no shoes on. It's like 20 something or 30 something. I don't know. It's not supposed to be too bad while I'm up there, like 40s and 50s. But it's really funny how I'm focusing on this trip because I'm really just thinking like, I get it, we have to feed the horses at 7. So if I get up at 6 and do my meditations and all that stuff and do the daily download, and then after the daily download, I can go feed the horses. So it's like, I'm already like working and I'm really excited about it, except for I might be a tad chilly, but I think it's scary to follow God's voice because you don't know whether it's your voice, whether it's self-will or God's will. And I kind of always struggle with that difference, and I know God's will is always much better than mine, but I've been thinking about it for 3 years. I've kind of, to be honest with you, really covered all angles that I can possibly look at the situation, for the pros and cons. So, I don't know. I'm gonna get off this and go cry really because I'm just. It's like almost like I know what I need to do. And it's such a big thing, and it's like it's a lot of letting go, and it's like I'm not like 35 anymore. You know what I mean? And to make that big, even today I was walking on my house. I'm not even really thinking about it. I'm thinking, okay, that's going to yard sale. No, that's going to storage. I'm already like doing that in the house. And I've been doing that off and on for about a year. You know what I mean? So I kind of know where everything's going.
Yep.
I can live without and stuff that, I'm gonna, not totally like have absolutely zero at this age of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyway, so thanks for letting me share.
Yes.
You'll be okay. I'm just gonna go and yeah, I mean, I don't do regret. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to get up there. I mean, there's pros and cons. It gets dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon up there.
It's
Gee,
dark.
4 o'clock,
It's-
right? It gets
It's dark. Yeah. It's about 4:15, about 4:30 right now.
That's just against,
It gets dark.
and I worry because it's like, I don't want to. I think I've grown and healed enough to go back and live in that area. You know what I mean? But I have a lot of that's where I was raised, and there was a lot of dysfunction, and I want to make sure that I'm just not going back into the pit.
And,
You know what I mean?
And God's guiding you up there now, right? Even in the midst, look at everything you went through to have to go there, right? I mean, this isn't just you jumping on an airplane like normal. I mean, you went through filling out paperwork, you went through getting COVID testing,
Exactly.
you went through all of the
There's a lot
stuff
to go.
onto this plane to go. So it is divine that you're going, and you will get your insights in the processes, right? And I would also encourage you to consider that feeding horses is also its own form of connecting with God, quiet time, however you choose to do it.
It kind of brings me
so-
back to my roots.
So I mean, you've already started the journey and it will continue to unfold. One thing that I'll help you, that helped me, that Dr. Pulley shared with me, because I was like, how do I know it's my voice or God's voice? Because to me, it sounds like the same voice. He said, you'll know that it's God talking to you when, one, it scares you, but two, it's for the greater good, right? That there are no questions that it's for the greater good. And so you might just want to consider that, meaning that it's for the greater good beyond just yourself, right? So it
It
goes
is.
beyond
My aunt's getting
what's good
older.
for
She
me.
needs help on the farm.
And it's beyond you, and it all is also encompasses you, right? So think about it. It serves God, it serves you, and serves everybody else, which is that greater good, right? And so that's how you can discern whether it's you or God talking. And I am clear that you are going to get exactly what you're going to get. You'll get the clarity that you're looking for. And I think now that it's top of your mind, you will absolutely get that. So this is a discovery trip for you for sure. And we hold that and see that for you, Patty.
And
Thank
look at what you get, a new horse.
Yes.
You get a horse,
She's
man.
enticing me. She says, I'm already gonna put one of the horses, she's already putting my name. And I'm like, what are you doing? But
And it's even beautiful. But did you say tomorrow is your anniversary?
it is.
So
Wow.
and you're traveling when?
Tomorrow.
My plane leaves at 8 o'clock.
You're
I'm
traveling
sorry.
tomorrow.
My plane leaves at 10.
Yeah, you're traveling tomorrow. New beginnings, new healings, right? So
I'll be non-smoker.
spectacular,
I'll be non-smoker after 10.
spectacular. So
Oh.
I just love those kind of connections. So I
Yes.
think that's going to be I already know it's powerful. It's already doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and we look forward to hearing how it goes for you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
I'll see you
Yes.
in the morning.
Yeah.
Thank you. 8 o'clock.
Happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
love you. We'll
It's
see you
beautiful.
on
It's on
Zoom.
Sunday.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's
And it's like
beautiful.
so exciting because if I move there, I can still go to church. You know,
Yes.
you know?
See, divine order, divine timing, divine placement. I mean, all of that, all of it. So that is beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone. Patrick, you said you have something to share, and I think Dr. Jones, you have something to share potentially. So as I said, this is our last class for the Victorious Leadership And Patrick put up look at that. Patrick put up a new Bible study graphic. And so the topic for the month of December is what's in a name. And so we're going to be talking about all the different names of Jesus, since this is the month of his birth, that we celebrate his birth and all of the stuff that surrounds that. So it's going to be very powerful. Although we're switching out of Victorious, we are switching into what's in a name, and I am confident we do not desire to miss it, because we know whatever's in Jesus's name is in what? Our name. So it'll be something spectacular. I always think Christmas is a rebirth for me as well. I think that's why, I get so excited about it, not only because I love Santa Claus, but because I just love the whole spirit of Christmas, and it really is like a new birth, I think. So I am certainly looking forward to this series. We know that next week, there's a bunch of activities. I don't know all the announcements. Somebody else can make them. We will not have class of any kind next week, because we do desire everybody to celebrate and give Thanksgiving, share with your family, whatever you're going to do. Just really our way of giving God the thanks. Going on that kind of, somewhat of a Sabbath where we're really worshiping and Thanksgiving. And so we're not going to be in classes or doing any of that kind of stuff. Patrick, do you have some more announcements that we need to make?
The only other reminder is, even though we're not having classes, we will still be having prayer on Wednesday.
Prayer on Wednesday.
Sunday is Harvest Table. So if you're physically going to be coming to service, that is a service where we bring things that are grown from the earth, raw vegetables and fruits. We do ask for safety procedures to just wrap those things, clean and wash them, and then wrap them individually in plastic bags. And then we will do that exchange. If you're not going to be there physically, for all of our virtual friends, you can still reap and sow verbally or through the internets to your family and friends. That's it.
Yes. Okay, so let's do, Dr. Jones, you had something. There's an elder meeting after this. Is that what you wanted to say? Or yes. Okay, great. I thought that's what you put up there. So as soon as I will leave Zoom. I'll stop the recording and leave Zoom open. Yes, that's what I will do. So now also is the time that we have in our service to give, because we know that God is our source, and as our source, we continue to give back to that source, because we know whatever we give comes back to us tenfold, if not 100-fold. So in that spirit of serving God, now's the time for you to give however you feel called to give. You all are pros at this. You know how we give. You know that we give in a spirit of cheerfulness. We give it freely. We give it liberally. And we know that good flows back to us as we give. And so I think that's it for tonight, unless anybody else has any parting thoughts, ideas. Just love to everybody.